Hello, and welcome to the April 2023 issue of the Zavitz and Sykora Financial Strategies video newsletter. Thank you for tuning in and listening to our update. I'm your advisor, Greg Sykora, presenting to you solo today. Mark is on vacation, returning next week. Today, I'm going to quickly go over our model portfolio performance. Then I'm going to go over the brand new tax-free first-time home savers account. What a mouthful. And what I hope you'll learn is that you don't actually need to be a first-time home buyer or in the market to buy a home. This can actually be used as an income deduction tool if you're a renter, albeit there are some hefty conditions. So let's get started. Strong performance. That's right. The very conservative portfolio is up just over 5%. The conservative portfolio is up 5.73% year to date. The moderate portfolio and the growth portfolio are up just over 6% on a year-to-date basis. That's in the first 4 months of the year. Quite strong performance. We've got 1-year performance that is positive. That's right. We are now positive from our very conservative all the way to our growth on a 1-year basis. So this is very, very good news. Most people's portfolios did something like this last year. So here's a view of the very conservative portfolio. As you can see, at one point over the past year, if you were invested in the very conservative portfolio, you were down. Yeah, you were down about 7, 8, 9%. When we met many of you to repaper your accounts and to add me as your advisor with Mark, you were likely down somewhere in the ballpark of 4 to 8%. Well, the very good news is that you've made back what you were down, and you're either flat on the 1 year or you're actually perhaps even in a small gain position now. So that's very encouraging. That's the very conservative portfolio. 1-year snapshot. Conservative portfolio looks almost the same. Same goes for the conservative portfolio, down almost 10% if you look at this slide going back to April 2022. If you got the timing right, you are now in a small gain position. You see the moderate portfolio looks very, very similar, down around 10%, and now we're positive. And also the growth portfolio down a little bit more than 10%. You're down 12, 13, 14%. As you can see, all the graphs look relatively the same now. And that's because bonds and stocks both went down last year. Typically, when stocks go down, conservative or very conservative portfolios do okay. And that's because bond prices tend to go up. But that didn't happen last year because inflation was driving bond prices down while stocks were going down. But as inflation, I think, between now and the end of the year comes down, I expect continued strong performance out of all portfolios. And I wouldn't be surprised if all of our model portfolios, be it the very conservative, moderate, or growth, ended the year up 10% each or even more. So they're going to continue to build on that 5 to 6% return that they've already seen year to date. So now that we've talked performance, let's talk about the brand new first-time tax-free home savers account, acronym FHSA, as if we needed more fuel for housing prices and housing demand. But I digress. The federal government heard cries from millennials, from people in their 30s like me, that we would never be able to afford a home. And here is one of their solutions: a new type of registered account. What can I say? As if we need another account. But anyway, our dealership Investia, they're giving us access. When I say access, clients like you, Mark and I, to this account sometime in June or July. So what is the FHSA? Well, the FHSA is like an RRSP and it's like a TFSA combined. It's like an RRSP because the money you contribute to the account becomes tax deductible, which is great. And it's like the TFSA, where all contributions that go into the RRSP and the investment income and the growth that's earned inside of the FHSA, I said RRSP, FHSA, can be drawn tax-free. So, tax-free savings accounts, when you take money out of them, the growth, the income, that's a tax-free withdrawal. The same can be said for the FHSA account. So this was designed to help those saving for their first home, likely persons in their 20s or 30s, be able to afford and buy that first home of theirs. So who's eligible to open an FHSA? First, you need to be a Canadian and you need to be between the ages of 18 and 71 years old. Secondly, you must be considered a first-time home buyer, which means you can't have a home that's considered a principal residence. And finally, you can't have owned a principal residence or a qualifying home's principal residence in this year or in the previous 4 calendar years. So what does that mean? It means it disqualifies about 95% of you who may be listening to this or of our clients. Since most of you own a home, which is your principal residence, you wouldn't be able to open this account. Or you could, but then if you were to open it and make contributions, the government would penalize you. And of course, those of you over the age of 71, you're also disqualified from using this account. That being said, maybe this is something you want to talk to your kids or your grandkids about setting up. So what are the characteristics of the account? First, there's an annual contribution limit of $8,000 up to $40,000 max. Second most important characteristic is that in order to accrue this $8,000 of contribution room, you need to open up the FHSA. So it needs to be open in order for the contribution room to accumulate, as well as if you don't use up the contribution room, for a carry forward room to continue and grow. Number 3 is there are no spousal attribution rules. So there are spousal attribution rules. If you give money to your spouse and they use that money to contribute to their RSP, technically, if you were to be audited by the CRA, they would look at that gift and they would attribute that contribution back to you and potentially tax you on the money inside that RSP when it comes out. But a TFSA doesn't have that rule. So this is very similar to a TFSA where there are no spousal attribution rules. And then the final point is that you can transfer the account out after 15 years of being open or at the age of 71. So that means that if you've got an FHSA and you're not using the funds inside of it, you haven't used them to buy that home. If you wait 15 years, probably by that point, your 40 grand is maybe grown to 60, 70, 80, 100 grand. You can transfer it out. Where can you transfer it to? You can transfer it to an RRSP. You can transfer it to a REF. So here's an example. So this is, who this is obviously designed for, this type of account. A young couple in their 20s who's never owned a home before. In this example, the husband and wife, they both open up an FHSA in their mid-20s, and they contribute the $8,000 a year max for 5 years. By the end of year 5, their original contributions are at the $40,000 lifetime contribution max. And because their money is invested, the account has grown to $50,000 as the money was invested in a balanced portfolio. The couples then go to buy a home. This qualifies them to be able to take the money out of their FHSA accounts, and they each take out $50,000 for a total of $100,000, which they use as the down payment for their first home. So they've received deductions each time they made the $8,000 contribution, and the $50,000 they each withdraw because it's going towards a home is taken tax-free, just like a tax-free savings account. So here's the not so obvious application of how the FHSA can be used. If you're under the age of 72 and you're a renter, you should consider opening and contributing to the FHSA. As long as you haven't owned a home or had a principal residence declared in the past 4 years, you can treat the FHSA similar to like an RSP and use it to save for retirement. Here's an example. Take this woman, her name's Teresa. She rents, she's maxed out her individual RSP. She likes the flexibility of renting. She's never going to buy a home. She's never going to want to own a home. She makes about $150,000 a year, and she works as a director at Canadian Tire. In this example, Teresa would qualify for opening up the FHSA, and she should actually consider opening one and contributing to one so that she can use the deductions that the $8,000 contribution will afford her. So in this case, she'd be able to open up an FHSA this year, contribute $8,000, reduce her taxable income by $8,000, the same way an RSP works, even though she's got no intentions to ever take the money out of the FHSA to buy a home. In 15 years, or by the time she turns 68, or at some point before the age of 71, she can transfer her FHSA account to her RSP, or if she has a RIF at that time, to her RIF. Essentially, it's acted the exact same way as an RSP account acts. So there you have it. 2 examples of the FHSA. If you're interested in learning how this account works, or say opening up an FHSA for yourself or your kids or your grandkids, please feel free to reach out to us or the team, Mark, Mel, Kathy. We're happy to have a quick call. Here's a quick disclaimer. Thanks so much for tuning in, and I hope you have a great day and you've had a great month of April.